Call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Did anybody have a chance to read the minutes? The last meeting? I read them. You read them? You have any changes?
I had that one thing, did you get that email, Karen?
Yeah, I took it out.
Yeah, I went.
And it was from the last meeting, yeah, I just didn't take it out.
Okay.
Ryan, have a seat, join the fun.
Thank you.
You got something there, Tom, you signed?
No, sure you. No, I can't. I can't get the most stuff. The old stuff.
Oh, it's not a
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah. Take the rest of the meeting for the stuff back up. This is why nobody comes to our meetings.
So this first agreement here, this one here is for, to take a look at why the tank isn't filling up all the way and that.
Yeah, there's like 4 of them, yes.
Yep.
That's the one that there's no funding for that.
That's 16,000.
Yep. This is awful.
Do you have a copy of everything that you sent?
Do we have funding for this, the PFAS evaluation?
If that's on Manley Street,
And we put that in our budget.
Yeah, we got, I mean, we got enough, there's,
one of them went above, but I think I can scrape it from other things to get there, cause I have an engineering line.
they're talking about 3 different
Yeah.
parts of the contract. One is for 6,100, one's for 29,900, one's for 19,900.
You're not gonna expect me to add those up in my head.
Come on.
55.
There's 20, there's 30, there's 50, there's 56,000, oh, 56,000.
No, one of them, cause,
The last number is the total.
Huh?
The 55,900, that's the total.
yeah, 56,
And 4.2.
that's the
That's
one
what
where I'm gonna.
Oh, that's the
scrape
total?
Every place else.
That was 3.
Yeah, the 3 add up to the 55.9, that's in 4.2.
Okay.
It's doable. It's only money.
Makes a difference if you don't have it.
Yeah, sure does. Pretty soon I'm not gonna be able to pay to fill up my pickup truck anymore at that cost.
since you're here, can I ask a question on the contract yet, or you wanna hold off?
Let's,
Go through the agenda.
I just go through there, yeah. We're almost there.
I need a vote on the minutes.
Oh, yeah,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
A second.
from June 21st, 2021 as corrected.
okay. And you seconded it?
I second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Sign those minutes. The ones I got here have,
Yes.
his changes in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. You all done signing your,
Yep, I gave them all.
oh, did you? You already passed them over, okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna take a vote to skip over the vacant, principal clerk's position. And we'll move on to these gentlemen. All right, with you guys?
Chairman?
All right, not here.
Start.
Second.
All right.
Oh, aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear what he said.
We'll go back to that one. Okay,
Good evening.
good evening, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You good?
I'm James Hoyt with Tate and Howard,
Yep.
project manager.
I'm Paul Howard with Tater and Howard.
Okay.
And Jenna Rises should be coming.
Oh, you got
very
another
soon.
one coming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then we'll hold off a little bit, I didn't
Yeah,
think.
you want us to wait then? and-
Yeah, we can wait, I thought it was just you two.
It's up to you, I mean, we're prepared to move forward. If you have other things you wanted to do, we don't mind waiting for Jenna if you want to move through those items.
Okay, I was just trying to get you in and out of here if we could, save some time for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it, but
All right, so we'll go back to the vacant principal clerk that we've had vacant for a while. If you guys had any discussions with
Nope, not
the
yet.
superintendent about it?
All right, I have it. So we have the vacant clerk, we have the GIS person, both would report to Kerry. If we combine those two spots, then it'll become a full-time position and we gain a valued employee that the town doesn't seem to value at all, because they won't issue a contract. I think it would be a truly good hire for us, but like I said, that person would report to Kerry, not to me, which is how it's working
Now-
currently.
I got one question on this.
Yeah.
She's gonna be doing what the normal clerk does, which is in the girl's contract, which they have one rate of pay for. But if she's gonna do the GIS, we should be giving her more than, there should be, she got more hours, but she should be paid more per hour than what she's getting as a clerk.
So we can bring her in at like the step 8, which is what the town is supposed to offer and pay her. And that
Would she be willing to do that?
I believe so. I haven't entertained any conversations because it's all what if scenarios.
Do we have a person for this? Who is
Yeah,
it?
it would be our GIS person.
Oh, she's interested in the position?
I believe she would be because the town is not offering her anything. They've shortchanged her on what they actually verbally said they were gonna give her. They won't give her a contract. They keep telling her that all of her benefits are by the town's bylaws. When she brings them the bylaws, they say, oh, those are out of date. They have to be up to dated. So we're gonna lose a person that I've spent more than a year training to do our piping. She's really good at the GIS, but when you get into the finesse of like piping or electrical or stormwater, it requires some learning how we operate. And I don't wanna lose the person, because I'm not gonna train anybody else. I'm about topped out on what I do, and we could actually get her to do some of my regulatory stuff, so it would start opening up my plate, because I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I've got other departments that paid, I'm not asking for money, but they're paid a lot of money, and they don't do a lot.
The other thing is, she went and got another job somewhere else too, a part-time
She-
job.
Well, she left here, because it didn't look like we were gonna be able to hire her, and she didn't wanna work for me. She left, and she was actually hired permanently by the town of Rainham, and she worked for the Board of Health there, so she has another whole thing. And previously, she's worked for DEP, so she has some regulatory stuff too. She's a good person to hire, she's a degreed person, she graduated 4.0.
Well, I'm really interested in the GIS, which we hired her for, which she seemed to be doing good, and then, the selectman's office and David Gagney, it didn't give her the money, I guess, that they promised her for a pay raise when she was first hired, and then, they won't sign a contract with her, and then she went out and got another job, so I'm thinking if we got, I was talking to Wayne about it, and if we got an empty position over there, she's willing to do that, and she could fill both shoes, why not do that? But she's certainly have to be paid a little bit more than just, you know, the part-time clerk's position if she's gonna do the GIS. So I don't know how,
So she actually left the GIS?
No, she's
IT
still here, she
position?
left, she was leaving here because she knew that the thing was ending. Well, it wasn't actually, because I could have kept her on, you know, part-time, but it would have been diminished. But she did go to the town of Rainham to work, and then when the town offered the full-time GIS person, she came back. Because that's what she graduated college for, that's what she wanted to do in life.
So she's full-time with the town now,
She is full-time with the town now,
of West Bridgewater,
yes.
and not doing anything in Rainham?
But she's left Rainham. But she's considered a non-employee, something, they have some stupid
Well,
terminology.
it's what, which one?
I know you went and talked to him.
Yeah, I mean, one of the selectmen basically doesn't want anybody under contracts, just basically,
You can't do that, every other town
well,
does
that's,
that.
all businesses do that, towns don't do that.
Right.
And he's trying to.
wait a minute,
make it-
he doesn't want a contract when, for 30-something years that I was here, they didn't want, none of us had contracts. We didn't have any contracts. We were a police chief, fire chief, water superintendent, and we had a contract. Then all of a sudden, they decided everybody's gotta have a contract. So every department head had to go and sign a contract. And they had the lawyers and everything go through the whole thing. For the last, 20 years that I was there, we all had contracts, but before that, there was no such thing as a contract. You were just hired, and you could be fired anytime they felt like it. But then they gave people contracts. But now, all of a sudden, they don't want contracts anymore.
Well, that's, you know,
That's crazy, because, you know, that's just David Gagney, if he wants to cheat somebody out of something, he can cheat him out of it. That's baloney.
Well, either way, if we have a person that instead of losing somebody who's valued, I don't know if you bothered to take a look at the PFAS page, she knows more about PFAS than I know. Because her and Terry leaned into that, and
actually, the link that you would send out,
Yeah, so
I couldn't get that to work, it wasn't
it's on
coming
the
up.
town website. She's very, very smart, she's very good at what she does. Personally, I would be relieved, like, because I've already worked with her, know her. And she is, I think she'd catch on right away. Wouldn't be like.
we don't have, the guys are supposed to back me up. If I go out, get hurt, and I'm gone, they're supposed to be able to pick up and run. If Kerry goes out, I don't have time to learn what she does, honestly. And I have no idea. I actually lost my password to the billing stuff, but I can get into the badger stuff.
Is she interested, Wayne?
I believe she'd be interested, because she wants permanency, and she's not getting that out of the town. She just keeps getting bounced
Well,
around.
somebody qualified like that, let's get on it, let's talk to her and see if she's
Yeah,
interested, I mean.
We have the position in the budget. the
So
money
if
for
I
that
combine
right now.
them all, yes, it would, the two things, how we're paying her and what I had budgeted for the part-time person, it will come out to her money by the
Because
time.
we've
we
already
get
got
her
the
in.
money to fill your position, the part-time position that worked with you, and then we got the other money put in there for the GIS person, so.
We still have a budget line item for it, I thought, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
It's still budget, isn't it?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a budget.
I mean, it's a bottom line budget, so if I just combine the two pieces, how we pay her one way and how we pay the other, it equals out to the amount.
And then we gotta get out of the agreement that we have with
So I'd have to send my message
the
and
selectman's office.
right, if you don't wanna offer her a contract, we want to hire her as a full-time person to take up our billing and,
So she'd be in the
Yes.
union, basically.
yes.
Yeah. So she'd be full-time.
Should be in the union with
She wouldn't
that
need a
part, not the
contract.
GIS.
No, but that's the thing, how are we gonna work out that
I would just,
split on?
well, I would just combine it, I don't know how you would do that then, cause that would get weird, 20 hours and then the other part would be by contract, it would be easier just to bring her in for the clerical and let her do it, I
Let her
would
do it.
bring
I mean,
her in
it's-
and pay her what she's supposed to be paid, she'd be near the very top of the grade.
Now, she's doing GIS for the whole town right now, right?
Yeah, they don't really use her though. She's doing, so currently she's supposed to be doing the MS4 permit, which I think the date expired. They're dragging it. She could probably do the MS4 permit herself, but they don't have her doing that. She reports to other people and has to wait for them. So I don't know what's going on with that, but the town can always hire a GIS person like we used to and get their stuff done, or she could do it on an overtime basis for them, or if it's not a lot, and it doesn't seem to be, because the water department actually did a lot of the GIS storm drain mapping.
I mapped that out
Yeah,
10 years ago when I was here.
It's
most
just
of
now back checking it and finding the little things that weren't gonna look for.
So that could all be figured out. There isn't 40 hours worth of GIS a week.
No, she could still do that while she was here and learn what she has to, because the billing is 4 times a month, so a month in advance of that, that's when she just has to slow up to learn, take on that learning curve.
If she's as good as you say she is, we should
It
pursue
wouldn't
it.
even be a learning curve, she catches on very fast.
no, we
She's
had no
very
issues at
knowledgeable.
all with her when she was doing the GIS work, she
Nothing.
was really
Yeah.
good.
Very
So-
knowledgeable.
If anything, I have
So-
to slow her
So
down, 'cause-
with all the trouble we have finding good people,
Right.
here we got somebody that's already got their foot in the door, and we like them, and they're doing the job for us. We gotta try to just put something together so we can keep them.
Absolutely.
And just, find out what she needs and make sure she stays here, because if she could handle that job, plus do the GIS, it's a win-win for us.
Well, and that one was only a part-time job anyway, the
Yep.
clerical assistant, right?
At one point it was full-time. 'cause I
yeah,
was
when
hired
Jean
there.
was here, it used to be full-time.
Yes, that was, yeah, when I was here.
When I was hired, it was.
Yeah, then you cut it back.
Yeah,
I mean, but if we're filling that as just a part-time position, and right now, she's doing our GIS as a part-time because she's
Right.
working
Yeah,
the other
work
ones
out.
for the town, so we should be able to work the numbers out,
Yeah.
to work out.
So what do we do?
I'll send a letter to David saying that since the town, I have to be gentle, I'll just say the town wishes to offer a full-time position here at the water department.
But should we talk to her first?
And I could talk to her first and say, she's actually gonna be here tomorrow, because Wednesdays are her day here.
See if she's interested and tell her we're interested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't you do this? Next time we meet, have her come in and meet with us, and we'll talk to her. Think she'll do that?
Yeah, she'd
We'll
come,
get her feelings, and,
she could do her day on Tuesday, that way she'd be here for the 10 hours.
July, I'm trying to figure out if you guys.
just come in, all we need,
Alright,
half an hour to try to get her feelings on the whole thing, and,
yeah,
because we gotta find somebody. I was already questioned by the union when we were gonna fill that position.
Okay, I appreciate.
They already asked me, yeah, an empty position down there, when are you gonna fill it?
I still don't,
So. So this might just take care of it.
alright,
Alright,
yep. Next on the agenda?
it looks like you got your whole crew here now.
We're here, yeah.
Alright, so you're up.
Great. So we appreciate you allowing us to come in and kind of talk about a bunch of the different projects that we've been discussing over the last few months. And if no one opposes, I think we'll start with the one we think is the most urgent, which is the PFAS at the Manly site. So what we've prepared here is a contract for both short-term and long-term upgrades at Manly. The first step would be what we consider our kind of immediate or interim treatment, alternatives to address the immediate need of PFAS. So as you are likely aware by now, the trend has been up, which is not a positive in this case, right, for the PFAS concentrations. And we have yet to exceed the MCL of 20, but we came about as close as you can come last month. So what we discussed is being as proactive as we can so that we are well positioned to move forward with the short-term solutions so that by the time potential violation comes in, we're well positioned to handle it. So the first contract, it's the one labeled Manly PFAS Evaluation. And what we're proposing to do here is on the short term, look at if there is a mass balance we can do in terms of the 2 wells that are there, chart the concentrations for every subsequent testing going forward, and figure out if we can side stream or blend in a way that brings the concentration in the raw water down before treatment, and then start moving towards treatment alternatives to improve the reduction of PFAS to the treatment. Because right now, there aren't any dedicated processes at the plant that are designed to remove PFAS. And then the second element is the long term, which is where we're looking at doing some pilot testing and identifying what the best long-term solution for PFAS removal would be. So that would include pilot testing of granular activated carbon or one of a few different resins you can use for ion exchange removal. So that's kind of what this first one entails, and it kind of folds in with a current grant opportunity through Mass DEP. On Thursday, we'll be submitting a grant application through DEP under their PFAS response program, and that is to help communities that are essentially stuck scrambling as a result of PFAS, where you don't have a long-term treatment solution in place, and so you're either it's for reimbursement for costs or planned costs. That would exclude long-term treatment options. But what we're hoping to do in this grant is show a need for interim solutions, which would include, in our opinion, the short-term evaluation, as well as looking at the spare filter vessel at the plant and using that for a side stream treatment of PFAS. And that would allow for funding up to $150,000 if the grant were to be awarded. The one thing we're not sure is if we don't have a violation on the books, whether we would score as high as maybe some other communities. However, there's a second phase of funding in October, so if there was a higher level of PFAS between now and then, we could resubmit in October with assumed a higher score, and that would still allow us to go after reimbursement for any funding you spend between now and October.
So the application you're putting in is for West Bridgewater?
Correct.
Okay.
From my understanding of the problem, Wayne was taking the tests on the 2 wells, and they were coming in at lower levels than the finished water, which seemed to us that the green sand was picking it up and then releasing it now as it built up in higher numbers than what the wells are actually producing. If we add carbon, say we change the green sand, and you put carbon in that extra tank that's already there empty, how are we gonna stop this from happening again? It's gonna get caught up in the green sand all over again, and high numbers are gonna be coming through and get trapped in the carbon, but we'll be changing the carbon more often after the levels get up high. I think we have to, I don't know how
Yeah.
I know we gotta get the iron out first, because if we put it through the carbon first, the iron's gonna mess up the carbon. So you wanna clean that first, but it's kinda, that's something I think we really gotta look at, how we're gonna,
So does the gamble, does it take it down pretty much to a zero coming through it? We don't have any experience here, but.
Pretty much it does, and I think you should be looking at not only carbon, but maybe filling that with ion exchange resin.
Yeah.
Because if you look at a carbon filter to treat that, it would be much taller. It'd be almost double the size of.
I've heard that
of
it
the
slows
filter
it,
that's
yeah,
in there.
you lose flow going through them.
There'll be head loss going through it, so there's the potential that we would have to pump that side stream back in to blend or reduce the pressure coming off the green sand filters to blend that back in. Because you can have up to a 10 psi loss through the filters, just as you do can with the green sand filter.
so the ion exchange will take this out?
Yes.
It will?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and we really don't believe that the PFAS is getting caught up in the green sand medium being released. I think the differential you're seeing is within the testing when we're talking about parts per trillion, and you're only looking at a couple parts per trillion differential between what you're seeing in the raw water and what you're seeing in the finished water, that's within the accuracy of the testing. So we really don't think it's getting caught, because we've done a lot of piloting. We contacted Blue Leaf, who does piloting all over the country for PFAS green sand, and they've never seen green sand where it captures it and then releases it. So
Okay, if you use an ion exchange, how would we backwash that? What would you use to recharge the ion?
it would be a one
Just straight through.
pass resin, so that you just use the resin till it gets expended, then you change the resin out, so there's no need to backwash.
Oh, really? So how many years you think you could get out of that?
It will depend on, depending on what resin we use in the flow rate, we can contact whatever resin manufacturer that we're going to look at, and they can ballpark of what, it's typically about 300 to 500,000 bed volumes.
What volumes?
Bed volumes, so the
filter?
right, that
How many
goes through
thousand?
300,000 to 500,000.
300,000, wow.
Doesn't sound.
Where GAC
Doesn't
is,
sound like a lot.
it is, and in a situation like this, it's probably going to last you, anywhere from 1.5 years to 3 years, somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, I thought it'd be longer.
Well,
So-
what GAC carbon though, it's about 50,000 bed volume, so
it's less.
that's much less, yeah.
So so we have to pump that out, then when you do, just dispose of it, or somebody recharge it and bring it back or something?
Well, with GAC carbon, typically you send it to be regenerated, you usually take your waste back, you lose 5 to 10% of it through that process. They add the virgin carbon in to make up the difference, and then you reload the filter again. But this would just be a temporary fix at this, because you need to run these in series, and we don't have series. So what happens is there's a lead vessel and a lag vessel, so you usually have 2 carbon units and 2 ion exchange units. When you see breakthrough through the first unit, it gets caught in the second unit, and then that becomes the lead unit while you exchange the meteor in the which was previously the lead unit, and that then becomes the lag unit. So then you're always protected against breakthrough. See, with a single unit, then as soon as you have breakthrough, that breakthrough goes into the system.
Then you shut them down and I lose the station.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if you're over the MCL, that's DEP has backed off on shutting
Alright,
that down.
Yeah, but EPA isn't even pushing this, DEP's the only one that's pushing this.
Well, only because Massachusetts passed their own MCL.
Right.
EPA has what's called a HAL, it's an advisory level, health advisory level, and that's 70 parts per trillion.
How many?
70. So
Still 3 times
if DEP went and passed the MCL at 70, I think there's about 56 communities right now that are violating the 20.
Yeah.
Only one would violate the 70.
Yeah.
So by lowering it to 20, they're capturing way more than I think they ever thought. But they're saying that through the Office of Research and Standards, that, you know, they had people looking at it and they believe that the appropriate level should be 20.
They're not gonna back off.
They will not back off on that at all. I've been very active in Mass Waterworks, the legislative and the technical committee, fighting against the 20 MCL, and it's fallen on deaf ears.
I saw other states that have it even lower, I was like,
They're in the state of New Hampshire, regulates individual parts of the PFAS. We have the PFAS 6, which we call in Massachusetts. They regulate individual parts of those PFAS 6, and some are down as low as 11.
yeah,
Vermont is at 20.
yeah.
Rhode Island was looking to go to 10. That got overturned, so now they're looking at probably 20 or something higher than that.
Rhode Island was looking at 10?
They were looking at 10, yeah.
Who's looking at outlawing this stuff to be used in the environment?
Well, our feeling is, as a thing, if it's that bad, why are you even allowing it to be manufactured?
Right, that's
But
my
that-
feeling.
But that doesn't
Why-
help us with DEP with what we're putting out.
Exactly. Why are we addressing it at the most expensive place we could possibly address it in the water?
Right,
It's the highest cost of any place to address it, and they're forcing that upon us.
yeah, it's crazy because the people who are getting upset about it and putting the burden on us to pay for it are creating the pollution upstream, and they're sending the water down to us, and when we catch their pollution, then they tell us, well, you gotta get it out and it's your fault.
Exactly.
Doesn't make sense to me.
But
Somebody else.
that's the world we live in.
I know.
I know that's not a good answer, but it's.
I know we have to do it, but some politicians in there have to wake up and, because we're the ones who have to fund it. They're not coming up with any funding. They want us to fund it.
Well,
Right.
they're coming up with some fund, right? They're coming up with some grant money, and they should basically,
Peanuts.
but they should basically
That's like
be
giving a
taking
kid a
everything.
scholarship for $100, say good luck,
Right.
you know?
There-
Congratulations, you got a
There's
scholarship
56
for $100.
communities that
the
they're
tuition-
fully responsible for the money for. So they should be coming up with a way to come up, whether they take it out of federal money or whatever.
Well,
Those
they basically,
communities-
they are doing that with this round of funding,
Yeah.
and
So
they,
that's,
and they have
as they
made,
keep going.
zero interest, loans through the SRF program. So that they're coming up with funding, but it's nowhere near the cost it is to the community.
Nowhere
Nowhere near.
So, back to, you said we could use our spare vessel,
Mm-hmm.
and that would only be a temporary
It
fix.
would be a temporary.
So how soon would we have to come up with a permanent fix?
Really, it depends on when you violate the MCL.
Well, but if we violated the MCL.
You're still not,
And you found we could throw that vessel full of carbon and run half the flow through it, put it back in, and now instead of putting out 20, we're putting out 15.
correct.
When would we have to do anything? Because technically, we were not, at that point, you're no longer
You're
violating
no longer
the
violating.
MCL.
Exactly.
And the
Even if,
problem would be burning out the carbon and having to shut down until you get the carbon.
but even if you violate, this is what's happening in communities now that have violated the MCL. In the beginning, shut the well down, can't use it.
Yeah.
Now they've backed off from that position in saying that you can either, they want you to do a PFAS compliance plan, which looks at exactly what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Near-term, short-term, long-term solutions. Then providing you're gonna have to go through a public education program where you educate the public on what PFAS can do to you. And then you have to provide an alternate source of water. And in some cases, people thought that was bottled water. We have, for a client recently, said, we're just gonna offer, they have 2 treatment plants in town. One's violating, one is not. Instead of offering bottled water, they're just gonna make a tap available at the other treatment facility, such as here, you could make, water available here, because you're not violating the MCL here. And then people would just come with their own jugs and fill it, because the cost of bottled water is extraordinary.
No, that was actually in the paper about Easton doing that. setting up a bottle fill station basically down at one.
Right, but I think they were looking at renting machines and doing that, and you don't have to go to that extent. You can just provide a tap
Yeah.
that people can come and fill their water with.
I think it's more important that we educate the public not at what's harmful if we exceed it. I think it's more important to tell the public exactly who's putting it in there and where it's coming from, so that they can call their senators and state representatives and the federal representatives and say, let's get this stuff out of the environment. Let's stop
Right.
using it. Find something else.
So, but you could spend as much money as you could spend on treatment looking for the source of it,
Yeah.
and then spending years in court trying to get a recovery from it. So I think the state of Massachusetts is, looking at potentially doing class action suits against the manufacturers, as other states have done, because in the long run, that's a much more cost-effective way to get some monies out of the manufacturers of
Yeah.
these
And then
substances.
distribute it like the MTBE money.
Exactly.
Yeah, we got a couple
A lot of money for
We
that.
got million and a half, 2 million bucks, something like that.
And that's the way because for the individual communities to go after it, and the time and expense to actually get a potentially responsible party is, and you may never find it.
Right.
Or they could be out of business with no
Yeah.
chance of recovery.
We never even exceeded the maximum
threshold
limit that
for-
we could have, because that was a settlement.
Right, exactly.
They paid us. We got a lot of money for,
And that will be the same for a
Just have it
PFAS
in
thing, that if you
Yeah.
had found it in your water, you'd be eligible to take
Yeah.
part of that settlement.
yeah, there was only 300 communities that took part in all the way across the country, so
Which
the,
raised the
yeah,
level.
the amount of money that we got went way up, because a lot of towns throughout the country didn't think anything was ever gonna get settled.
Right.
So they didn't put the paperwork in.
they
that was
never
amazing.
signed up for it, right, exactly.
Good for you guys, right?
Yeah, it was real good. All right, any other questions for these guys on that one?
I'm not sure I got my answer on when we would finally have to do something permanent. Would we even have to if that was working?
If,
Using that spare vessel?
But there's only one vessel.
but, right, I mean, what their long-term compliance would have to be is you'd have to add a second vessel and put it in series, so that if there's breakthrough through the first, that you'd be catching it in the second.
What if there was breakthrough and then we shut it down and change it? How long does it take to change?
That's also a potential. But
I'm
then
just
you
wondering if
then you
that's
just
possible.
negotiate,
We just have to find out if that even works to begin with.
right,
But we're
and
not
then,
sure it'll even work then.
well, we're,
In theory.
You'd have
it,
to do the
it has
damage
worked
ratio.
in other, for the same substances that you're finding, both ion exchange and carbon has worked.
What was the spare vessel meant for originally?
I think it was
Just for any extra treatment that we may have to do later on.
Like that?
They thought, yeah, because they
I
thought,
think it was probably for if your iron and manganese
Or if iron and
increased,
manganese got higher.
that you'd have another vessel which would lower your loading rate across the three vessels that you have, and then extend the time between backwashes.
no, it was put in there because they said if we ever got another chemical that showed up, that vessel was sitting there for that purpose. Because I was here when they designed it, and I was the superintendent, and Dufresne and Henry designed it that way. We just had the room in the building, and I think all the vessels went in before the building was finished.
Typically, before the roof goes on.
Yeah, everything was, so they said, it's a lot cheaper to put the tank in there right now, get it in there, and it's sitting there, you don't ever have to use it, but if we have to cut the walls down to get another tank in there, it's gonna cost 3 times as much, and cut the roof open or something and drop it in with a crane. So they said, let's put the extra vessel in, and we'll have it. So we went along with that. And it's sitting there empty, but we never knew what we were gonna use it for, but. And they were actually thinking may have to use carbon someday, because of the because of the gasoline that we had in the water.
But the way carbon works for PFAS removal is there's a mass called a mass transfer zone in the carbon that moves down vertically through the carbon. And then when it reaches the bottom, that's when you have breakthrough. So that's why you see that most carbon filters that are utilized for PFAS removal are very tall, 17, 18, 19 feet tall.
More of a vertical tank than a horizontal tank.
Correct. And that's why you wouldn't just put a layer of, you could put, instead of anthracite on top of the green sand, you could just put carbon there if it was only a small layer that you needed for the treatment. But it's not, it doesn't work that way for PFAS removal.
Okay, any other questions?
No, one thing, James had said, I think right in the beginning, in the long term, you would, I don't said to do you're gonna look at ion exchange for the long term. I think you said ion exchange and carbon. Are you still thinking of looking at carbon also on that long term?
Yeah, so long term, we would pilot both technologies. That way we could compare the results side by side and do kind of a life term, like
And would that be
lifelong.
downstream of the green sand that we're
Downstream
running
of the
now?
green sand, yeah.
Not because we're also looking at the other green sand. Would it be any different? Wouldn't matter?
Well, yes, you'd want it downstream. If you don't remove the iron and
Well, no,
manganese,
we want it
between
downstream.
either
The
medium.
question was, would it make a difference between the green sand we're running now and the other green sand that we're talking about, instead of the green sand?
No,
with the green sand with hypochlorite?
The green sand plus would not be any different than the treatment that you're getting now with the regular green sand.
Right, so it wouldn't matter.
Right, yeah, we're trying to remove the iron and manganese so that it doesn't foul the medium.
Our last PFAS was 18.8 out of the plant.
Okay.
The one we just,
Yeah. June
so that's
2nd.
actually low.
Yeah, it dropped a little.
Okay.
I'm
So
trying
just-
to time it with the backwashes and
And at
it makes a big difference.
and at the levels we're talking about, you could see,
Right.
3, 4, 5 parts per trillion differential just in the testing
Yeah,
itself.
somebody said to get to the actual MCL, you'd have to drink, I forget how many Olympic-sized swimming pools and.
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. And 20 parts per trillion, if you were trying to visualize that, it's a 1 grain of sand in an Olympic-sized swimming pool would then make that water undrinkable.
Well, and that is pretty actual, and 1 grain of sand,
1 grain of sand in an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
that puts it in perspective.
And that makes it unhealthy for you. If you drink that much water, you drown.
Well,
Jesus.
but that's equals a part per trillion, and then, the MCLs are set for, exposure over 70 years,
Right.
1 in 100,000, getting increased risk of cancer, drinking 3 liters a day. So who drinks 3 liters of water a day? Very few people. But, that's the criteria used typically to set an MCL.
Well, and once people hear the number,
Well,
that's
well,
it.
Yeah.
well, I mean, most people here, they don't even want it in their water. They don't care what the MCL is, they just don't want it, right?
Yeah.
Making
They
things
put it
zero
there.
is very.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna treat the zero, we might as well just
Give up.
put a blank check out there and walk away. Right?
And there's other stuff in their water they don't even know about.
Correct, that they're not even testing for. They're saying that there are probably up to 7,000 PFAS compounds, and we're regulating 6
So it's up to 7,000,
different compounds that make up the PFAS family of
and they're
contaminants.
regulating 6 right now?
6 right now in Massachusetts.
Boy, at 6, it could become 7, 8, 9, 10.
Well, the thing is, you could go through this process, pilot,
Yeah.
design a plant, and by the
And then
time,
change it.
by the time you actually have the plant constructed and ready to turn it online, it could be out of compliance if they decided to
Yeah.
regulate a constituent that can't be taken out by the process you have.
Right.
Because there's long chain and short chain PFASs, and the ion exchange resin is better for the short chain, carbon is better for the long chain. So There's the potential that they could regulate, you know, you could have a carbon treatment thing that does address some short chain,
Yeah.
but is not as good at short chain as ion exchange. They could regulate a bunch of short chain compounds and you'd be out of compliance.
Right.
Because I think looking at the results, at least from the last one, it looked like the ones that are the highest of the ones that we have out of the 6 of the long chain.
Of the long chain, which are better treated by carbon, but, you know, you'd have to look and see which one's more cost effective.
Yeah.
Because if they both take them out in the long run, or take it out and get you well below the MCL, then you have to look at, like we said, the amount of bed volumes that can be treated by each, and then how they react with your water. It's every water is different.
Yeah.
All right.
But there's the potential that you may have to put in a dechlorination step prior to going into the filter too, because carbon is going to take out
Right. It'll remove it.
all the chlorine, and then that will tend to expend the life of the carbon quicker.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
we'd also be
and then
looking at
chlorine affects the ion exchange resin and makes it soft and sticky, so you need to get it out.
So we would have to
Ion
also be
exchange,
looking
too.
at adding the chlorination step, leaving the plant.
Or dechlor.
Well, no, dechlor in the middle and then add chlorine again for your
Yeah,
residual.
currently we carry through like 0.01 milligrams per liter for chlorine residual as it comes out.
That's all you're carrying now?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably at that level, we wouldn't even worry about it. But
But
typically what happens is that, you know, people carry the chlorine
Yeah.
residual right through the green sand, because if you wanted to keep a 0.2 at 100 feet in the thing,
Right.
you just apply it once and
Yeah, we never needed it. We were just using it there to oxidize the iron. That was
Yeah.
about it.
So I have a question for you. Some towns were giving out bottled water.
mhm,
Is it true there could be PFAS in the bottled water?
could be, absolutely.
So they may not have been accomplishing it.
Yeah, they don't test for it, 'cause they don't have to.
Yeah, I mean,
So what was the
that's
sense of that?
controlled through the FDA, so it's
We
totally
could be
different.
giving them water that has more in it than.
Well,
they
to show
get from us.
you, for example, state of Massachusetts has a secondary of 20 milligrams per liter for sodium. FDA can say sodium free at 50 milligrams per liter. So you're in violation in Massachusetts at 20. You get a bottle of water at 50 and it's sodium free.
So all that bottled water they were giving out could have had more PFAS in it,
There's the potential for that, yeah.
depending on where it came from.
So, yeah, so I mean, that's why you're much safer if you're testing down here. You know that it's good, you provide a tap, then you
So
know
that-
you're
that's
doing
why
that,
that
and
would be safer.
the cost is, that you save is
Nothing,
phenomenal,
right.
exactly.
All right. So we'll move on to the next one.
So the next one is for the Cedar Street and Norman Ave wells for an iron and manganese pilot. So this one would be looking at doing a pilot test to see whether green sand plus or biological treatment would be more effective for iron and manganese removal for those two sources. So this one is at $19,900, so this is less than what you had previously funded for it, which we were hoping may help that the Manley Street one was a little bit over.
No, you gotta
But
be.
these are the pilot test proposals, not.
Correct,
not-
sorry, yeah.
Not
Yeah.
to conduct the pilot testing. It's to
Yeah,
put the
this is to
proposal
get
into,
to the point of
to
having-
DEP to approve the methodology that we're recommending
Yeah.
to look at during the pilot testing. It does not cover the pilot testing itself.
Correct, sorry.
So what would the pilot testing, be in a range of, costs for that?
That depending on how you do the testing, it's, for iron and manganese, you're probably looking in the ballpark of, probably 120,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Well, how long do you have to run the water through the?
For iron and manganese, it's only a couple weeks.
know you guys have developed a couple different types of technology to take iron and manganese out.
Mm-hmm.
Would you look at both, or a couple different methods other than
On
the
the-
green sand?
On this one, we're looking at biological and the green sand. What we found is there is another process called Lanox, which is, it's a media that's a little different than green sand. It's a pyrolusite media. But the company that does it has been extremely difficult to work with. They
Oh,
want you to
wow.
almost guarantee that you're gonna buy their units before they even will talk to you about piloting. It wasn't that way years ago, but that's the way they've become. And we've found that the performance of it is very comparable to green sand, so we don't think you're missing out on anything.
How about, what's Rochester using? You built a plant down there.
We built a plant for MRV, for the Mattapoisett
Yeah,
Valley.
Mount
Yeah, they use membrane filtration.
Yeah, how does that work after, I remember when it was built.
It works well. I mean, we've got several membrane plants. The cost of those are much higher than
Green sand,
green sand or the biological.
do they last longer, or do they perform better, or?
Well, you have to change the membranes. They recommend every 5 to 7 years. MRB has actually gotten 11 years out of their membranes. They're in the process of designing a new skids for them now to change their membranes. What it was is that back when EPA was talking multiple barriers, so that the ultrafiltration membranes can protect you against other things. They protect you against giardia, they protect you against viruses, they protect you against other things that green sand doesn't. So it gives you that added protection, but it's not going to help you with PFAS or other things. And if you have organic color, it helps you with organic color, which you really can't remove with a green sand plant.
Yeah, we don't have that.
No, we've done a 7 MGD biological plant for the town of Shrewsbury, and it's working fantastic. So green sand, you design around a 24-hour filter run before you backwash. We're getting well in excess of hundreds of hours with a biological plant, and plus there's no chemicals that have to be treated with it, just maybe pH adjustment.
All right.
So it's definitely a process that you should be looking at.
And cost associated,
Are comparable.
size
Are comparable. And it depends on the constituents, how you have it. In Shrewsbury, there was very little iron and very high manganese. Because there are, where green sand removes both in one vessel, the biological, you have separate vessels for iron removal and separate vessels for manganese removal.
Wayne, it's the iron coming up in these wells out here?
Yeah, there is iron, yeah. I haven't tested the station here, cause I figured when they do the new well, I'll pull one on our existing well and see what our iron and manganese is, but
'Cause these wells used to have nothing in them, but I think they were
they're all
starting to
close,
ramp
yeah,
up
they're
a little
climbing.
bit.
Once they start, they usually, like, I think we've said before, it's not linear, it's usually exponential, how it
Yeah,
increases,
'cause
once it
manganese
starts
has
increasing.
increased. I think it's doubled over time.
See, we have 2 wells out here, we got 2 wells just down this road here, and then through the woods, we own the whole thing, and it goes over to Norman Avenue. And then behind that, there's a big old sand pit that's out there that we could build a plant. But if these wells are going up, we need to look at treating it all in one place.
Treat all in one
Because
place,
we own everything in between,
then it's just piping.
yeah.
Way cheaper to do
The
piping.
pipes
than
are
two
already
separate
there, all
plants.
we'd have to do is just shut it off and really just send it down this way. And the pipes already goes over there. And it goes right over the other station, just gotta go out the sand pit.
Mhm.
And you can put all the water in there first before it goes out.
That's the way to do it, for sure.
Yeah, we just have one plant, so we don't have the upkeep on 3 plants.
The other thing we need to be concerned with is we're only a town of 7,000 people. Trying to do all this,
Trying to do it all, right? Doesn't, you know.
trying to do all this with, 2,500 customers.
Yeah.
That's our big problem.
Yeah, and it doesn't scale, you know, it just,
No.
it doesn't, you know, it doesn't cost you 10 times more to build a 10 million gallon a day plant versus a 1 million gallon a day plant. You know, it's only an incremental cost.
Right.
It's-
So that's what hits us hard. We don't have,
It's the customer
we
base,
don't have a
just
huge
spread
customer
it,
base.
to spread it out.
to spread
out
out
the
the
cost.
amount of infrastructure we need now to put water out there.
Mhm. It's a huge issue for a lot of communities.
Especially small communities.
Small communities, and there are small communities that don't even serve the entire town, you know, they may only serve a third of the town or
Right,
half the
right.
town. So
So
which
we-
makes their base even more limited.
We've gotta try to do this and not have the highest water rates in the state. We're an enterprise account, we're separate from
From
the
the
town.
town.
Yeah, we don't get any taxation, we
Mhm.
pay for everything ourselves.
So we have to generate everything to run the department. That's what scares me, what the price of water's gonna be if we have to do all this.
It is, but
And you know what happens?
what are your alternatives?
Well,
You know,
there isn't,
that's-
but we
that's-
just-
That's the
We
problem.
need to
is
do our
the-
best to try to.
The other
be
thing that
efficient.
bites us is when we raise the rate to pay for everything, then they use
Use less water.
Right.
And then,
But you see typically that you use less water for a year and then the old habits come right back again and then, but that is the catch-22 about it. Raise the rates. You put them into that second tier, third tier, you know, they start sprinkling, they start
then the
watering.
Department of Revenue steps in and says you didn't bring in enough money, and now you can't have your next year's budget until you show how you're gonna cover it. And you don't know how much water you're gonna sell, so you raise the rate and they're saying, well, prove it that you're gonna sell it, you know?
Well, you really can't. I mean, you have to have some basis for when you do your rate structure on what the usage is gonna be. I mean, and it's a guess.
It varies every year.
Exactly what it is.
Exactly. Depends
It's
whether-
a guess and you hope you guess right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's, are we gonna get a wet season or are we gonna get a drought season? You know,
It's an educated guess.
are restrictions gonna be there that don't allow us to sell the water even though we have the water to sell?
Yeah. Already complained, but. So far, we're treading a careful line, they're using a little and they're not, they've held back this year, but we're above, I think we're still in a profit zone, so. And the year's not cooperating too well, it's been kind of a wet, but it hasn't, the heat drives them,
Oh, we got the hottest June of record, right?
yeah.
Hottest June,
Of record, yeah.
we seem to be getting all the rain now. We didn't get it in the winter, we didn't get it in the spring.
Well, I think
It's a dry
I think the
spring.
second day of July had more rain than the whole month of June, so.
Or probably even March and April.
Probably. It felt like it.
Yeah, we didn't have a wet spring really,
No, not at all.
but we always seem to get it sometime. Now this year we're getting it in the summer, so that doesn't help. But
Or the need for the groundwater is you want it to rain lightly
Light.
for days,
Yeah.
not, you get these torrential downpours and it's
Runs
all
off.
runoff and it doesn't
No, what you
recharge
want
the
is-
groundwater.
a lot of snow melting, we didn't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't get that very often.
All right, wanna move on to the next one?
Yep.
Okay.
So the next one we have is for the Walnut Street tank. So what we're proposing to do under this contract is take the existing hydraulic model we have, which is currently in steady state, and upgrade it to be extended period simulations. So we'll take a look at the various operating parameters in the distribution system, come up with, diurnal curve, and then do extended period studies to show the filling and usage out of the two tanks, so we can better identify the best operation to get better water quality and better water age. And one of the things that we would look at is the potential of an altitude valve and see whether that allows us to get, you know, more favorable operation out of those tanks.
So I know you talked about saving, moving, see, we're not allowed to move money around. Once the budget is set, it's fixed. I can't, even though I might have some money sitting here, I can't get it. So in this project, it was actually gonna be funded a while back, but we decided that it's just under $700,000 not to spend the money at that time. So it got unfunded, so it would take a special town meeting to move money to fund this one. The other one, I can, even though we don't have enough, I can grab it from here or there
I understand.
to get it out of my budget.
Oh, unless we get that zero interest loan to pay for one of those, that we can apply to one of those contracts, that would make money.
Yeah, I just saw that just came out in the email today.
So if that grant application does go through, that might give us the ability to take some of that engineering money that we have budgeted. Because we really need to do something with that
Yeah.
Yeah,
tank, that's getting,
definitely.
yeah. And they'll, and what are the chances somebody's not gonna call a special town meeting? I mean, they tend to pop up.
Yeah, I can always force it too.
Any other questions on that one?
I don't think so.
Very good. And then the last one is kind of hot off the press, and we just sent this over to Wayne this afternoon, but we provided a proposal for the next phase of new source evaluations. So I did want to kind of send some of our initial thoughts and come and talk about, I guess, you know, long-term priorities in terms of that, understanding the potential of the costs of all these treatment options, how aggressively we wanted to move forward with kind of the new source. But, you know, we did provide a proposal as requested to essentially kind of pick up where we left off, where we had done an evaluation of the various town-owned parcels, isolated just the parcels that were large enough that you could protect the wellhead area, and then, you know, kind of rank those in priority based on what swimming basin they're located in, any previous water quality analysis that was done, excuse me, and then just what the soil conditions are based on kind of view from above, you know, with regional soils and aquifer data, with the emphasis being put, you know, in areas where we've done prior test exploration. So out of that last study, we had a handful of recommended sites. So for our proposal, the first thing we wanted to look at was just kind of do a quick review on things that have changed in town since we did that study, mostly related to water quality, and make sure we're not, you know, putting, investing in test wells on parcels that are immediately adjacent to existing well sites where we have water quality issues. So it might just be a reprioritization of those recommended parcels for us to, you know, dial in where we want to actually start putting in some test wells. But we wanted to kind of get your thoughts on time frame of moving forward with that, based on kind of everything that we know is happening at Sear Street and the Manly sites.
Well, the town's growing and we need to get another well in, so,
Yeah, this one, I know that
and
it
it takes years.
was funded, so I'd have to see what got spent out of it first before,
Or what we did the previous one.
yeah, how much we've spent out of it getting to this point.
You know, I think our recommendation would be, though, that you might want to pause on this, only for the fact that you've got other issues that are coming up, and they are town-owned parcels, so they're not going anywhere. You look at what your current average day and max day demand are compared to what you have for existing capacity, and your existing capacity well exceeds that you have what we feel may be more urgent needs for the funding than doing this now.
My issue is I have all the water here, but I can't turn it all on to get it out there without cleaning my pipes, and then everybody's screaming and yelling at me.
But cleaning your pipes is,
I know, it's part of the problem. When I have clean water to put out there, it'll be better, there'll be less dirt. You know, right now we spend, every Friday, we go out and we do maintenance on the system. We have areas where we know we've repeatedly got complaints. And so far, this entire summer, we've been ahead of it by spending an entire day flushing those points.
right, but isn't it a bigger bang for your buck of looking at
Oh, yeah, no.
doing that versus putting the money into a new source? You know, as you say, it's a 4 to 7 year process, could be a 10-year process.
And a
We
new
got-
source that you
we
have
got
to get DEP to agree that you can
That
take
you
that
could even,
water
well,
size.
it's just gonna be redundant when we
Yeah.
first do it, because we're not even close to our allocation already under the Water Management Act. It would be permanent as a additional source with no flow really, you know, because you haven't demonstrated the need for it.
But we've got a couple huge projects going on in town. They're building houses and a parcel that sat there as an open fields for years and years and years. And how many units are going in there, Tom?
80 at least.
Yeah, and that's just that one project, and I think our average over every 5 years was an average of 51 houses or 38 houses or something. It wasn't very big. We've been doing that since 1940 something, and now all of a sudden, this guy's building 80-something houses, another guy's building a place right across the street, and then they just proposed a gigantic building the whole, just about the length of Lincoln Street, all along Route 24. So we're all of a sudden,
But I mean, what's the
the
zoning?
demand for water is gonna step up here, and if it takes us, 7 to 10 years to develop a well, we could find ourselves behind the 8 ball real fast.
But you also, unless the zoning's changed and it changes the build-out analysis, that's still a build-out analysis, doesn't matter whether it's 80 now or 80, 10 years from now. You have to look at what demand was generated from that build-out analysis versus where you are today, and it's, I think the ADD in 2017 was about 0.65 million gallons a day. In the build-out analysis, you were a shade over a million, 1.08, and then you had a max day demand of 2 MGD, because your current average to max day ratio is 1.85, and I think the total sources that you have today are good for 3.5 MGD. So you have a max day demand of only 2 MGD at build-out, and the ability with your current sources to get 3.5, and I think in 2018, they looked at the max yield of that was like 2.56, because you weren't able to get the full 3.5 out of it. But, we believe your money would be better spent maximizing those existing sources that you already own. You already have the land around it.
Yeah.
We've got those sources. Now let's maximize those. If they're approved for 3.5, let's do what needs to be done to get them back to that 3.5. And that 3.5 million is well more than you need even at build-out.
How far out is build-out?
Build-out would be looking at the entire town.
What on the analysis one was it? What?
I think that was done in 19?
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, I remember we had it done, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
Like they ran it
Oh,
up.
so what we
how far out did it run?
Yeah, so technically it goes out, assuming that there is no monumental changes to your zoning bylaws.
Right.
So what it looks at is every parcel in town that could either be subdivided or is we call it like underutilized. So that means
He's
it's
just
not
asking-
built out now.
He's just
it's
asking for
split.
about what year it
Yeah,
was.
how far out did they?
Projected
Oh,
out, I think we projected it out till maybe 2050, somewhere around there.
I mean, I think we probably showed around 2040, if I remember correctly.
And so that 3.5 million projected out would
Goes beyond that.
Yeah.
Goes
The
even
build
beyond
out only
The
gets.
build out gets you to 2 million
Two.
as a max day, only
Yeah.
a million,
So it's not.
1.08 as an
The
average
source,
day.
that was one of the reasons for getting that done in the first place, was to get an idea of what we've got compared to what we should need. You know, the problem with the zoning bylaw is you get somebody who comes in with a good sized 40B.
With a 40B.
and
Well, the
zoning
40B is
goes
a
up.
wild card because.
Right, exactly.
That's true.
You know, and that's what would.
But again, you're
Those are
talking.
the projects we have going on, these big projects, they're 40Bs.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and the analysis would have included only 40Bs that were being required at that time, so as those go up, you're right, there is the, you know, potential that, the percentage for 40Bs could increase, and
You're
then.
talking about going from 2 to 3.5.
3.5,
That's a
right,
large
that,
jump.
exactly, which would be a huge jump.
And we can't
No, we don't
permit
have
for max
our
day
rates.
demands,
No.
we can
Right.
only
Oh,
permit for
We
average
have two
day.
major projects occurring, and that, the new source is the third major project. It's, the rates aren't gonna sustain it.
Right.
You guys won't be commissioners anymore, they'll be
Oh, wait.
pitchforking.
What is this?
And they'll collapse into the town, I bet, because they won't wanna pay it.
You know, because once the Water Management Act came in, you know, started in 86, and it, you know, your registered volume is what you use between 81 and 85, and then
Right.
you increase that by more than 100,000, or developed a new source, you were required to then get a permit.
Yeah.
So the permit is only gonna, you know, DCR does your projections. You're only permitted through the Water Management Act, what their numbers that they come up with, and they have the 5% buffer. And so, as Jenna said, you're only permitted for average day demand, you're not permitted for max day. Max day looks at, you know, how much can I pump the source
Yeah.
in that one day, but my average day demand is whatever I pump, you know, even during the summer, winter, average it all, divide it by 365, and that's what your actual water management permit is. So if you're looking at it in respects for that, you know, if your build out average day is only 1.08 million gallons a day, and you have capacity for 3.5, then let's look at getting that capacity back. It's by far, you own the land, you own the infrastructure, you own everything to do with that, rather than invest that in a new parcel. You know, and there may actually be even more potential in the land that you own than where you have developed sources already for additional sources within that.
Out of town.
So that's worth looking at.
And then even that new source, I don't know
Yeah.
any treatment.
It is
Exactly.
important for a new source.
We don't even know whether it's
Yeah.
available, we just know that these parcels are available,
Just
but
for
they haven't been proved to actually produce water.
Manganese are gonna wipe us out.
One of them has been tested. Didn't Rotary Farm have
It had
test
some
wells?
Nitrates or?
Yeah, we did some test wells out there. We didn't do actually a pump test, but the water was pretty good quality there. I think we were good for 300 gallons a minute or something like that. The interesting thing down there is it sits right on top of the gravel, sits right on top of a layer of anthracite coal. That's where we hit bedrock, you know, is anthracite coal.
So we're getting a little in-ground treatment?
Yeah.
Pump all the PFAS over there.
Yeah,
And drill through the coal, so the water goes down, and we'll pull it
Those
back
were
up
true
through.
artesian wells too, because we had to put the pipe up 4.5 feet.
Above
to
grade
get
to
it
stop the
stop
flow?
running out on its own. When it
Yeah.
was down the ground, put a T on it, it ran weeks and weeks and weeks at 21 gallons a minute, and it just kept going.
Mm-hmm.
We had to cap it off because it was making a swamp.
Yeah, but if we're looking at which things are more important, we got a 1 million gallon tank that we can't get to function properly. That's a part of the system now. And if we have money left over in that new source account right now, we'd have to go to town meeting. But it would probably make, if there's that much money and we don't know what it is, would probably more important we get that part of the system working and functioning with what we have than something that's gonna be that far out, that we might not get permitted to use anyway.
Right.
Or would be low on the list for
Right,
having
and
the
if you-
ability to use it.
And if you didn't have such a large safety factor as you do now, just with your existing sources, you know, it may be a different story, but we just feel that there's better use of your funds, or you've got known problems that need correction.
We should deal with the problems we've got at hand, right, this minute, I think.
Trust me, I'd love
We
to
have
know the
plenty of
numbers. I have 7, but when one breaks, 3 others break with it. Suddenly I'm not making it.
Right.
Alright, so we all set with these? Okey doke.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having
Thank
us.
you, thanks for coming in.
Do you guys have cards so we can
Yes.
read for you?
I have mine in my
I have to go
purse.
get in my.
I'll go first.
Who's
Buy
our
you some
contact
time.
person now? James is, you're our main contact person?
Yes, I mean, you're welcome to call any of us anytime, that's,
Actually,
So you don't want us to call them unless we're not happy with you.
I mean, I'm always happy to talk to you, can I
I
put it
have
that
one.
way?
Everything.
Would you like one?
Sure, I'll put one in my, thank you.
Are you gonna be, from now on, you say, the main contact for West Bridgewater?
Yep, and anything treatment-wise, you know, Paul's gonna be heavily involved in, because, you know, he's an expert in the industry, we'd be foolish not to use him, right? So, yeah, but the idea is that I'll be the main point of contact on all the projects, and, you know, we might have a couple different design teams, depending, so we're catering our expertise to each one separately. But the idea would be that, you know, I could be the one person you pick up the phone and call if you have issues on any of them.
And you're the one that can beat on them
Right.
if somebody's working on another
Yeah.
job instead of this job.
Everybody-
pull them back
Exactly,
in.
yeah.
Trying to line
And
up
then they
so
can
I
beat
don't-
on me if they need to do that to me.
These are-
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
Excuse me, did you guys
Rick,
sign?
before you
those?
We
sign,
did,
we need to
yes.
actually vote to sign those two?
Yeah, I think you do.
Before we,
Okay. We can
You
vote
can
on it.
sign them and still vote.
and then
on it.
make a motion, I
Yeah.
suppose.
As long as it gets voted on, it's fine. I just knew it had to happen before I forgot. and-
Sear and Norm, yeah, that was probably a good idea.
So what are we signing, 2 of them?
The signing
Yeah.
on Sear Street, Norman Ave, and then the other
Yeah, 'cause
street.
you can't sign
Okay,
anything else
So
until we have
I'll
funding.
entertain a motion to sign these 2 agreements.
I'll make a motion that we sign the agreements with Taylor and Howard for the Manley Street PFAS evaluation and for the Sear Street, Norman Avenue.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have Don on for this finding here.
Oh, I have that address too. Perfect, okay.
Here's these, Karen.
Yes.
Did you get these?
Yep, everybody signed it.
I think so.
Two.
Huh?
It's two, right?
Yes. Right, so we did sign for the Sear and the Manley, so.
Okay.
But I think the accountant has to sign it now, I think. Don't they?
No, that will be, that doesn't come into play until, much further down the road.
Do you want me to
It's,
copies of the one?
Yeah, you can send them off now if you want, yeah. I don't think they need the yellow stick.
Do you need a signature from the accountant? You don't?
Not typically.
Up.
Because that, when we
We
sign
don't
it,
need it.
we'll put it from the sign.
There was a signature line
There
for
was
it.
There's a signature line in there in your contract.
Yeah, we don't,
No,
we
You don't
don't,
need it?
no. Typically, that we only have that in a construction contract
Yeah.
for, you know, the actual
Yeah, that's-
Make sure the money's there.
stack. Yeah.
Right, that's the time I've seen it.
Yeah.
caught short yet, I'm trying not to.
Well, that was terrible about Pat,
Excuse me?
when we lost Pat as our engineer. I said that was a shocker when we heard.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Our second board member, my partner, okay, 17.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I was the second board member, so I was accountable. Being a male board member.
Yeah. Wow.
He was a good man, Pat.
He was real good.
Yep.
Yep. We always enjoyed meeting with him, and we always got our answers, you know,
Very
our
knowledgeable,
questions
very
answered.
great to deal with.
Yeah.
Real.
Good guy,
And James, you're just sitting there going, hi.
Yeah,
James
we go.
is good too.
Yeah, we miss him.
That's me when I leave, nobody's gonna say nothing good about me either. Like, you raised our rate, you gave us iron, you gave us class.
Thank you very much.
They never remember the good things, right? The treatment.
Yeah. We've long forgotten.
No. So how long were you superintendent for before you moved on to the board?
38 years.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was superintendent, I think, for 20-something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was here for 38 and a half years. Came here in 76. Back then, we didn't have any treatment.
Right?
Didn't have this building.
Yeah.
Didn't have this land, didn't have any of this land. We own 5 acres, I think, out here. Now we own 200, I bought 200 acres, I think. Bought all this, bought everything that was left.
Yeah.
We just kept, and anything that they wouldn't sell us, we took by eminent domain. And it all worked out good. Everybody was worried it was gonna cost us a fortune, and it's all paid for.
Yeah.
Well,
It's good to have
Well,
extra
paid for
land for.
They had the Rotary
replacement.
Farms paid for.
Oh, good.
Yep, and the iron removal plant we built 30 years ago, that's got one more year, I think.
That's close.
That's almost paid for. This building was paid for.
And now we'll have to start paying for a whole bunch of new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We're just trying to do our part though to bring in some recharge from outside the area.
Yeah, we just had, we didn't even have an office before we had this building. We used to have a little office upstairs in the town hall. And we took that desk out of the town hall, and they were all mad at us because we stole that desk. We didn't have any furniture when we moved. We didn't have chairs to sit in.
Alright, I bet you guys have places to be.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for
Nice to
coming
meet
in.
you.
Likewise.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda here is old business. Do you want to talk anything about that we haven't talked about for station 1, 2, 3, and 4?
That covers
That
that.
covered that one, yeah. And also the replacement well, I think that got covered.
Yep,
We just finished paying for a big chunk.
yeah,
Update on the new water source, we just talked about that.
yep.
Asset management grant.
I just applied for a reimbursement, so that's going through. I think the DEP got it and it's processed.
It's
Okay.
just waiting.
Yeah.
And generator out back. How's
So
that?
we brought back the, it's not called a distributor. I should ask him when he was here so I could write it down. But we put it in, and I don't know if you've ever pulled a distributor out, if you change the tooth. If somebody cranks the engine, then you're trying to find the right. Yep, so he spent a couple hours and he got it running, but other parts that they were trying to replace, the old firm, it was racing up, so he's ordered another part, but we're staying with the same, it's a senior, they call him a senior tech, but he's really knowledgeable of it, and so he's on 2 weeks vacation, so when he comes back, he'll bring back that part, and then he'll come back and put it together, but he spent a couple hours and it came up and running.
So it comes out running with what, it just speeds up too far?
Yeah, it overspeeds because of that part.
Something to do with the governor or something?
Yeah, there's a technical name for it, it's not a governor, but they call them weird names, I think they do it intentionally.
So he's ordered the part, and we're gonna go look at it?
Yep, yeah, they rebuilt the old one, all of the gears inside of that, just what you call a distributor, they were all busted up.
So, looks like it'll be back running soon, up the way it's supposed to be running, and
I
we should
hope
be
so,
good.
because every time I get a 40,000 alarm call messages, no power, I'm wondering what's going on.
Alright, and the Walnut Street tank, I think we just discussed that,
Yeah,
enough there.
and the hydrant's in and working now, or it will be, we just need to get out there for a day and fix it.
Anything else that
And you
legally
fixed
could
the
be
damage
brought up?
that was around on the site, you said. that's
Yeah,
all.
we're gonna mess it up a little more and then we'll fix it, we have the loom now to do it, and we'll green it up and make it look good.
Kerry, do you have anything that you want to tell us about?
Just the next meeting,
Okay.
Monday, August 2nd.
August already.
Oh.
No.
No.
Oh, it's gonna be
between-
July, I'm like,
Well,
really,
you give us
through
maybe
the month. June is gone already.
Yeah, Monday, July 19th, how's that?
Ah,
We could go for that
Sorry.
August one if you want.
Um,
What was it, July what?
19th.
19th? Okay.
Oh,
Alright,
and our new hire, he's, David liked him, so, he's gonna meet with the Board of Selectmen tomorrow night, which is just basically a meet and greet kind of thing, and
so, as
but he's still interested.
he's interested, but he's been grumbling the whole way through about the money, and like I told him the day he was sitting here, I said, these are the three guys. If he, and like I told him, I don't know you from Adam, anybody can put something down on paper. If he comes in and proves himself, then I'll come back at you guys asking you to send a letter to the thing to raise his pay. I don't wanna lose anybody.
I'm in favor of that, what do you guys think?
No.
If he's-
Let's try him first, let's see.
Right,
what
I
he
wanna
wants.
see
That's what I'm saying, try it.
Everybody wants more money, let's see what he
No,
says.
No, I'm saying it's
Seems
fine
like a real
first,
good
but
fit.
I don't wanna
If it
lose
works out,
You got these
I have no
Right.
problem.
down on the bottom
He
of the
seemed good,
table.
but try him, a new broom
Yeah.
sweeps clean, let's see what he does.
You're right,
Yeah.
no, try it for
No,
a while.
that's what I said, I'd rather see him first. You know, and I've got plenty of things he can do on overtime, it's not.
We can all-
He doesn't have any water licenses yet, right?
No,
No.
And they
So
just
let's see if he
beginning to
follows
open up.
through in school and.
Yep.
Can pass the test and.
Yeah, he shows that it's gonna work out and
Right.
can do something for him.
Yeah, we'll bring him up.
And you're gonna talk to the GIS girl.
yes, I will.
And, yeah, see if she's got time to come in and see us at our next meeting. We'll see what we can do. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.